out.
You tune into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. It's Larry Kwirirayi on this Monday. We're on until 8:30 o'clock. And today's a fascinating topic, a topic that was broached, I think, a week ago by the president, but it has spawned more discussions since then. And I know we normally say it's Political Mondays, but today it's about policies around a very specific topic that I want to introduce to you after I remind you of the frequencies you can listen to us on across the country. Chivu 99.8, Kariba 105.3, Motora Shanga 97.6, Masvingo 96.1, Gweru 104.3, Mutare 95.4, Wobulawayo, my hometown 106.7, and we're broadcasting out of Harare where our frequency is 106.4. Listen to us over the internet. It's www.zfmstereo.co.zw, and you can just listen to us live there. And you can also listen to us via the TuneIn app, download it free of charge, and then listen to ZFM Stereo live and in charge. And also, if you want to follow the conversation, it's on 0772168045 via our calling numbers, and on our WhatsApp is 0731168045. On Twitter is at ZFM Stereo, and if you want to listen to watch us on Facebook, and you can check out, you give us free feedback via our Facebook platform is facebook.com/ZFM Stereo. This and all our current affairs programs, of course, available via the iono.fm platform, where you can listen to us within 24 hours of the live broadcast. Now, President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government says it is working on a second republic in which constitutional provisions to devolve power to provincial levels will become a reality soon after next month's harmonized elections. Now, I'm going to quote what he said throughout the program, but I want to go straight into that, because one of the things that flashed out when I did a Twitter poll earlier on and asked people how many people knew about the Second Republic, what it was, what does it mean. There were not that many people. And in the studio, I've got two intellectuals in the studio to come and help us discuss on this. First of all, Mr. Richard Mohomva, who is a political analyst and budding academic. He has a monologue on Pan-Africanism, from the cradle to the present and the future, a text used in political theory studies, and is a co-editor of the post-1980s Chimerengas Explained, and is published within the area of architecture and governance in Africa. And in the studio, of course, I've got Dr Nkululeko Sibanda, who is a Doctor of Philosophy in Politics and International Relations, came from the University of Huddersfield. He speaks himself as a multidisciplinary thinker in politics, paleontology, sociology, metaphysics, and the scientific method. He specializes in human geography, geopolitics, international relations, public policy, public administration, governance, democracy, world history, and philosophy, and currently serving as the presidential spokesperson for the MDC Alliance. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Now, the first thing I'm going to ask is, what is the Second Republic? Maybe we can start with you, Dr. Sibanda.
Well, look, you know, it's a nice word. It's a nice phrase to dip into. I don't know what the context within which the president uses it here, but I guess he's trying to say that we are having, you know, everything has restarted with this government. In my view, everything is either new. I guess we're going to have a new Zimbabwe and rename it the Second Zimbabwe. I think it's just for me, it's hyperbole. The fact of the matter is that the constitution requires us to devolve government to the provinces, and that should be done.
Okay, and your interpretation of the Second Republic?
I would reflect a bit back to history. When you look at the history of Spain, 1931 to 39, there was a new initiative which resulted in the overhaul of the old political system, ushering in a new political system, of which you also see the same with Chad around the 1960s, coming down to even Nigeria, where we had several transitions, but which asserted themselves as second republics. And within that context and that character of the countries that I've referred to, you discover that those new systems that were born in those political contexts were meant to challenge the erstwhile despairs that were created by the then former governments of those respective countries. But what you then see is that in most instances, and historically, the threat is that those who initiate second republics would be people that will be in the orbit of power, but you've got a certain sense of discontent about maladministration and probably fault lines within the issues of statecraft. And coming back home, you'd discover that the current dispensation was born out of circumstances of despair with the old, and there was need to put in new structures within the political phenomena. But now, the Second Republic translates issues of realism or the Machiavellian paradigm of power, where people are only interested in power. The Second Republic speaks to policy reconfiguration. It speaks to restructuring issues of governance and even the political culture, something that we have seen since the coming in of President Mnangagwa, particularly in his pronouncements on devolution as another key facet of our center of the debate tonight.
When you look at a lot of those examples of second republics, a lot of the time there was the creation of new constitutions and things of that nature, the passing of laws and that, and quite rightly in making reference to, say, for example, the Section 2 of the Constitution, which talks about central governance ceding power to provincial councils, so they develop, or rather determine their developmental priorities, rather. But what would the anatomy of such a structure be? Maybe we can start with you, like, if it's provided for example, but what is the anatomy of it?
Look, Larry, you got it right. If you were to talk about, and I'm hesitant to use this phrase Second Republic, because I think that it is hyperbole that is intended to create a sense of newness, a sense of renewal. What Zimbabweans should know is that President Mnangagwa isn't anything new. President Mnangagwa is well defined. The cabinet that he has is nothing new. There are no new faces there. It is everything we've always had. You know, it's like getting your usual I don't know what, and then you paint it in a new color, and then you say it's you camouflage it, and then you say it's new. There is no Second Republic. What there is an election, and that the president wants to sort of caricature himself as a renewal. And you put it right. A Second Republic will be characterized by changes in constitution, changes in approach to governance, changes in the laws and policies, and restructuring of our social and political environment. None of that is happening. The only all will happen. And listen to what they always say, these politicians. They always say that the Second Republic is going to come after the election. Okay, this government has had 6 months and has not done that. The president has had 6 months, has not done that. And that's only if you believe that he's had 6 months. The president of this country has been a senior politician in this country for the last 38 years. And at no time did he enunciate any policies of that nature. And Zimbabweans are very educated, and here's a good example. And unless they're willing, they will be duped.
So what is the anatomy of that second?
There is no anatomy with this regime.
Okay, no, I'm saying we're talking about Zimbabwe going forward. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to take political pot shots right now, but the question I'm asking is, basis on policy, what would whether it's under the government of the advocate Chamisa, whatever the case may be, what is needed going forward? For example, we talk about devolution, right, which has been spoken about. What would be the anatomy of a devolved system?
Oh, that's a great question. If you're talking about,
which is my original question.
Thank you. If you're talking about president, I thought we were really talking about this phrase, Second Republic, which is hyperbole. It's just
okay for posterity.
But if you're talking about devolution,
discussion, we'll use it for the sake of the discussion. But what
no.
Okay, no. Wait. What I really would like is today, is for us to focus on what the policies of of whatever it is you want to call it going forward.
Devolution.
If we got devolution, what would it be? What are the policies? What's the basis for it? What does it look like? What kind of animal is it? Because for the person sitting at home, we give them absolutely nothing if we spend the whole day saying, no, but your politician does this and your politician does that, which is what we're trying to get away from in this discussion. That what is it? What does it look like? What policies need to be changed? What powers need to be surrendered to what? So that's the anatomy that I'm asking.
An obiter dicta here, my friend. It does matter what politicians do because it affects our lives, and we should, if we're serious about going forward, we should talk about that. But let's talk about devolution.
But let's talk about the
policies.
Let's talk about devolution. Today we're talking about the policies.
Yeah, let's talk about devolution. And policies are what politicians do. Don't forget that.
That's true, but let's not follow today. I mean, last time I had you in the studio, you wanted to talk about policies. I'm giving you the opportunity to talk about policies today.
Thank you.
So can
I really appreciate that. Yeah. Look, under the presidents of Nelson Chamisa, and if his rallies are anything to go by, it's not going to be very far. You're going to be enjoying that too. Devolution is this. He said very clearly, and this is where you get the material, not just the loud speak. President Nelson Chamisa is going to move, for example, he's going to move Parliament to Midlands, okay, to Gweru. That is devolution. You're moving the center into this periphery. And why is that a good thing? Parliament has its own functions in society. If you move Parliament to Gweru, you're going to develop Gweru. So the people of Midlands are going to have this advantage of the hotels there where the MPs go stay are going to develop. The society, the population of this country is going to have an equal access to Parliament because Parliament is stationed centrally in the country, okay? It's not just in Harare. He's going to move certain departments that are headquartered in Harare, and he's going to make sure that the headquarters right where people live. So the people's government is where people are. Just at the rally yesterday, you talked about your passport. He says, look, there is no reason for a child who's born in Gokwe to be rushing to Harare to get a passport, to get a birth certificate, or to be rushing to a larger city. You should be able to get these services at your doorstep. That is what devolved government is about. It is about moving much of governance to where people are, and that these people benefit from that. So you're going to have your military headquarters moved out of Harare, perhaps to another city. You're going to have your Ministry of Agriculture headquartered elsewhere. That is a good thing. Harare is ballooning. You could hardly travel on the roads because it's poorly planned. You've planned Zimbabwe such that everybody has to be flocking to Harare to get simple things done. The traffic that people are seeing here is going to be easy. So there's going to be a lot of improvement, some of which that didn't need a lot of thinking. Okay, just ordinary thinking. Why have we created the bottleneck in development? Why are we making sure that Harare is cluttered and that you couldn't drive on a road easily? And those are the things, some of the things that are common sense things, common sense strategies that President Nelson Chamisa talks to, that his policies talk to. And I think that everybody ought to love that. Did you drive to drive here today?
So the question I'm going to ask you now is along the same line of questioning. To say there was a statement made by Dr. Sibanda to say since the events of November the 15th, or November actually, 15th to the 21st, there has been no progress. There has been no any sense of devolution. There's been no. I mean, for want of a better word, essentially everything's remained the same. Can that say to be true?
I think the starting point of our analysis, the fact that for quite a number of years, the opposition, the civic society, and the international community have been pushing for Mugabe. We were pushing for Mugabe's core agenda. That on its own clearly shows that the fact that Mugabe is no longer in power, there is a structural change within the orbit of power. So to me, that marks the first phase of transition. And then another antithesis that we also see is that this has been serenaded by the fact that there's also been a similar change within the opposition party, the bigger opposition party. And what that translates to is that really Zimbabwe has evolved to a phase where there is new faces of power, which is something that can be treated as a development across the political divide. But then what has the incumbent done? As far as issues of outstanding or residual matters around peace and reconciliation, President Mnangagwa enacted the National Peace and Reconciliation Blueprint, and he has also commissioned an organization to actually facilitate issues of national peace and reconciliation so as to make a clear audit of national healing for issues of the disturbances that took place between 1982 and 1987 in this country, issues of long-standing allegations of electoral violence. So that on its own is a clear reflection of a policy initiative to sanitize the aspect of peace. And as if that is not enough, when you look at even the plural political playing ground, the government has enacted a new policy paradigm characterized by a situation whereby all political parties are given fair media coverage, and you'd discover that even the structural architecture of elections in Zimbabwe, you discover that the opposition has had access even to rural areas. So to me, that is a shift in policy. For me, that is a strategic transformation that characterizes a second republic within our context. And whilst there could also be, disgruntlement about how corruption has been kept, but there was an effort to look at issues like the externalization of funds. It is something that has actually been put onto the fore and has been subject to national discussion. Yes, there could be failures or there could be successes around that particular matter subject to one's discussion, but it's a policy initiative that is indicating our path towards fighting corruption. The Parliamentary Portfolio Committee around the missing $15 billion, whether progressive or not progressive, but the fact that we have engaged in such a debate which did not characterize the past, to me is so reflective of a structural change. And again, when you look at how the government has begun to lobby the international community around issues of widening, the depth of our democracy, to me, it is very important, the re-engagement that we are seeing across the board. And you also realize that within that context, the new establishment has caused a shift on the side of the opposition to say even issues like the land reform we're going to endorse, and issues of foreign and local investment, we're going to ensure that we do that. So there is a sense of concern around restructuring governance. And to me, it's a clear mark of a second republic that has been born.
Dr. Sibanda, a question I ask is, what I'm hearing a lot of days, a lot of rolling back and creating new policies around certain issues. Is that seen as a sign of progress in terms of some of the things that, say, for example, some people might call them progressives or whatever they're called in this part of the world, that have been calling for? The structures around it are at least beginning to get created. Is that progress, or even though we say someone will argue that okay, it's not going to happen in quick time, is it progress at least?
Larry, look, I think Zimbabweans are educated enough to make a difference between somebody who's really talking about policy or a lot of hot air. Okay, now I've already said at the top of the program that the promises of this government are something that they're always going to deliver after the election. The idea that talking to the international community's progress is ludicrous to start with. You live in a community of other countries, you're supposed to talk to them anyway. And, it's like somebody takes a pig and puts lipstick on it and then they call it a princess. It's not, it's a pig. Okay? That's what it remains. The idea that President Mnangagwa is a new person in politics can only be exercised by those who have the memory of a locust. Very short memory, okay? If you have a memory that goes beyond what you heard a minute ago, you know that President Mnangagwa was here for Gukuraundi in the 1980s. You know that even before then, he was in the war of liberation of this country, okay? And there are a lot of lies about what his role was, we know that. You know that President Mnangagwa was here for Mramatila. You know that when in 2008 the MDC president Morgan Tsvangirai had won the elections.
But all this.
Can I just finish?
No. We need to be careful here. Okay, we need to be careful because the issues that we're talking about here is again structural issues. I know that it's easy to talk about, but when we're talking about the points that have been made and not the personalities that are made, talk about the points that are made. That when we look at the fact that in other countries, let's talk about, for example, in Nigeria, when they had the quote unquote, I know you don't like the word Second Republic, and in Spain, in those countries, there were certain liberties and certain discussions and certain things that didn't happen in public. Based on whatever the case may have been. And in those countries, the fact that after an event of some nature, whether it was a flashpoint event or not, it was seen as a certain level of progress in spite of who the personalities were. And as quite said, a lot in many of those instances, the constitution that was written in Spain in 1931 and which however ended with the Civil War in 1939, the characterization of a new page, if you want to call it that, might not like that word, have we not seen compared to, say, July last year, structural changes? From that basis alone, I would like us to talk about policies. I know we'd like to talk about politicians because it's electoral season, but about policies. Has there been structural changes in policies? And if there isn't any structural change in policies, can we talk about the particular issue?
Larry, I'm a very nice guy, but I'm not stupid, okay? When you talk about the Second Republic, you're talking about what a politician said. And the moment you continue talking about what the politician said, and you don't want to talk about that politician, you are promoting that politician while hiding behind a finger. Let me finish for a minute. Let me finish. You didn't disturb him. Don't disturb me. Just be fair. Look, I don't have the memory of a rat. I'm a grown adult.
Nobody.
And I will tell you. And I will tell you this. And I'll tell you this. The idea that there is a second republic simply and thankfully, thank God. This is one thing I thank God for. Okay, Zimbabweans aren't stupid either. Your listeners aren't stupid either. They know very well that I'm telling the truth, that President Mnangagwa has been here for 38 years. And no amount of glossing around that is going to undo that fact. It's a reality. And to refer to issues of structure isn't just changing one person and putting a new person. It is about how things are done. Okay? Nothing in this country has changed about how we used to do things. Okay? We're still right where we were last year, where you have a country where corruption is the order of the day. You have your state media that still doesn't follow the laws under the so-called new dispensation. They still biased in their coverage. You have a Zimbabwe Electoral Commission that is not independent under a so-called new dispensation. There is nothing new about this dispensation but the words. It's just balloon. It's just hot air. It's baloney. I'll tell you that. That's all it is. You put hot air in a balloon, it will grow big and big and big and probably burst. The fact of the matter is, we have not seen any change at all in terms of the attitude. As I said, if you put lipstick on a pig, you remain with a pig. You don't get a princess. This is what we've got.
And so what would let's get back to you. The idea that there has been no change, and thank you for finally answering the question, but the idea that there is no change, that's the notation that is going on. Is it why is it that the people are not like Dr. Sibanda is saying, they're not feeling that there's a change? Is the idea of the Second Republic a fallacy? And if that is the case, coming back, I'm going to come back to you to tell me what the base of a Second Republic is. If we're to go towards that, what would be the base for it? Yeah. Starting with you.
Larry, I think for us to argue that there is no structural change in Zimbabwe really is not quite candid. Why am I saying so? Because first and foremost, change is noticed in terms of policy frameworks that are enacted by government. And how does government enact policies? policies are enacted by governments putting in a pledge to put in to facilitate a particular administrative action, because basically the textbook reference of a policy or the textbook meaning of a policy is what a government wishes to achieve, and how it then executes it through proper evaluative methods and all of that, and monitoring. And what we have seen, as I've indicated, is that on the part of the economics, we have seen how the issue of the externalized funds has been presented by government. Whether that process failed or succeeded, the issue is that we already have a policy precedent that has been set by the government. And I also cited socially to the aspect of the national peace and reconciliation to say there have been outstanding peace and reconciliation issues that have actually defined our political culture. And that is very pertinent if the government now puts in a particular commission, because we are then able to evaluate the success of that policy enactment by the functions, by the achievements of that particular commission. And the fact that we already have a policy blueprint around issues of what you call it, of national peace and reconciliation. So for us to say really nothing has been done against a background of issues that have remained a significant part of the opposition's point of conflict or contradictions with the establishment is not adequate. When you come to even the aspect of media coverage, fine, one can argue that there has not been fair coverage as far as media is concerned. But for the first time ever since this country got independent, we have seen the manifestos of the opposition parties being disseminated, being publicized, and being discussed live on television. And one would say, really, there's been no structural reforms as far as media or information access is concerned. Opposition political parties, and thanks to the fact that President Nelson Chamisa of the opposition has been in the rural spaces of our country, and that very much depicts a new change as far as the structural running of our politics is concerned, because over the years MDC did not have such a privilege to go around the countryside, and that defines a second republic, that defines a policy change. And there's an issue that the good doctor raised to say, well, there is nothing amazing about interacting with the international community. But you would recall that we had antagonistic relations with the West. And the fact that there is a new administration, and this new administration says we are open to dialogue, we are open to business, we are open to your interventions as far as observing elections is concerned, we are open to even other forms of diplomatic interaction. That is a policy shift, of which, if we are saying really nothing has been done to that effect as far as the domestic issues that I've highlighted and the foreign policy issues that I've highlighted, really would not be truthful with ourselves.
Okay, let's take a quick break. When I come back, I still want to talk about the basis of that, the base of it. I really want you at home to tell me what you think the idea of a devolution of power is. What does power feel? What would power feel like in, say, in Bulawayo? What do you need there? What is it? What is the work that needs to be done? And I want to hear from the guests in the studio. What are the actual structural changes on the ground that people should expect? And get in touch with us on 0731 168 045. That's our WhatsApp number. And on Facebook, we're at Facebook Live, and of course on Twitter it's at ZFM Stereo. And our call number being 0772 168 045. It's ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town.
ZFM Stereo via Facebook on facebook.com/ZFM Stereo. It's ZFM Stereo Talk.
Can we begin by looking at Zimbabwe's debt clearance plan?
We have since cleared our arrears to the IMF, and right now, clearance of arrears to the African Development Bank and the World Bank is underway, is work in progress. And I'm confident that we should be able to reach an understanding this year.
The talk that gets you talking, Mondays to Thursdays between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. News, lifestyle, charts, live radio, station highlights, and much more. Get it all on cfmstereo.co.zw.
The platform. Step up and speak up.
You're still tuned into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. We are talking about this animal called, some people call it devolution, some call it the Second Republic. One of our guests doesn't like that statement, but in the context of the discussion, I'm trying to understand what a Second Republic and the basis of it is concerned. And I think for many people at home, this word is like, okay, what's the first? What's the second? What does it look like, this different animal? Farai on 0731 168045 says, Dr. Sibanda is talking about moving Parliament, etc. to Gweru. Have they done a feasibility study already, or is just another politicking? Is moving central government to Gweru a bread and butter issue? Dr. Sibanda.
Thanks for that, Farai. The fact of the matter is that yes, moving central government is a bread and butter issue. Moving parliament is not central government, by the way. We can't be talking about devolution and central government in the same sentence. Just disagreeing with ourselves. So Farai needs to check that the logic there. But the fact of the matter is you don't need a feasibility study to move parliament. You need a political decision. And the political decision that President Nelson Chamisa is making is that parliament has to be, every Zimbabwean must have equal access to parliament. It must be as far to everyone as it is to a lot of people, at least as humanly possible. And Gweru is central in this country. That's why we're sending parliament there. We want everybody to be able to observe and look at what parliament looks like. And parliament carries with it a lot of developmental issues, infrastructural development and so forth. And that certainly means that those living in and around Gweru will see a lot of development, all of which has been channeled towards Harare, and also causing problems in terms of overcrowding in Harare. So Harare is going to benefit from that. Gweru is going to benefit from that. The country is going to benefit from that.
So the follow-up question I have is it's a fascinating statement you made. You said feasibility, you said a political decision needs to be made over feasibility.
There is no feasibility.
So the question that we're going to ask is, one of the biggest criticisms of the what has been happening before is that a lot of things are based on political decisions and no feasibility, was taken into context. Isn't that the same thing that we should be worried about? Or should there be a policy shift around that?
Look, those two things don't go together. It's just a complete misunderstanding. The location of the seat of parliament and the location of government has nothing to do with feasibility. It should not have anything to do with feasibility because it is governance. You put government where it best serves its people. And parliament best serves. Many countries are trying to do this. Countries like the UK is trying to move parliament, in fact, and put it in different towns so that it sits in different areas at different times. That has nothing to do with feasibility. And what feasibility do you want to study? You think that the people of Gweru can't contain parliament? You think that Gweru can't have a building that fits parliament? That just doesn't makes no sense. You do a feasibility study. If you're going to build infrastructure that's going to collapse or something like that, parliament is not going to collapse because it's in Gweru. If you build it badly, it's going to collapse whether it's in Gweru or in Harare. And in this instance, really, you don't need a feasibility study. The people of Harare are going to benefit from the decongestion of Harare caused by the presence of parliament in Harare.
Okay, we're going to take. It's about to take a first call. Please try and call back once again. Your response to that question?
I think maybe we need to correct a few conceptual issues from the good talk submission. I'm happy we share the same academic background in issues around politics. I think whenever a policy proposal is made, there should be a feasibility study. But before we even get to a feasibility study, policymakers need to question the relevance or the importance or the need of a particular policy. Why do we want to put in a particular policy? What is the urgency? What is the need? Is there an urgent need for us to even do that? Because for us to argue that by merely shifting the parliament to Gweru, would decongest Harare, as if having the parliament is the only point of congestion and depression of the space and issues around governance. To me, it is quite problematic. But when we look at the
I don't
aspect
think you know
of
what policy is. That's not policy.
no, it is policy.
I want to give you an opportunity to respond, but first of all, let's try and get this call, because this caller has been trying to call.
Okay.
You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution, where are you calling from?
Hello, DJ.
Yes, what's your contribution?
I think the parliament is quite a good thing.
Okay, can you turn down your radio because you're getting a bit, okay. He was talking about the moving of parliament is quite a good thing, but I wanted to find out what his reasoning behind that was. So please carry on. Please get in touch with us, 0772-168-045. That's our calling number, and on WhatsApp is 0731-168-045. Carry on.
And again, you do not, as a party, be it a ruling party or the opposition, decide to say, this is what we're going to do and we're just going to no, you seek citizen consent around issues. So if a government in waiting or a party in waiting begins to make such impositions to say, okay, we're going to have the parliament there and we're going to have it actually indicates that it's a potential dictatorship kind of.
Okay, let's just get this call coming in. You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution, and where are you calling from?
Ndinoda kupa opinion yangu pamusoro pezvataurwa kuti gay changes since the coming of the new dispensation. Ichokwadi zvishoma changes aripo, because even freedom of speech yavako, tinofamba tichitaura tichikambena zvakanaka, no violence, and zvinhu zvakawanda zviri kuoneka zvachinja, but hatina chokwadi chokuti after my election the situation icharamba yakadaro. With new dispensation yakasvika tava patime yekuprepare kuenda kuma-elections, zvichida kungoitirawo kuti tiende kuma-elections zvakanaka tovhotera hurumende iripo. As after my-elections no one knows kuti zvicharamba zvakadaro here, nokuti izvi mukatarisa kunyange ma-MP nemakanzera akanga asiri kuuya kuvanhu paperiod ye5 years apfuure vaakufamba vachipinda muvanhu. Saka toti zvinhu zvachinja zvanaka here, kana kuti ari kungoitira kuti awane kuvhoterwa kudzokera pachigaro. But hakuna anoziva kuti zvicharamba zvakadaro here after my election.
Thank you for your contribution. Get in touch with us, 0772-168-045. You guys are just playing around like kids now. This is a serious show. Busy high-fiving each other.
No, it's an interesting discussion.
But then I want to ask that, because it's a very important question. I know you don't like the phrase. For the posterity, for the sake of progress of this discussion, the New Republic. In certain countries, like in Nigeria, it lasted 4 years. In certain countries, it lasted 9 years. In this instance, someone is saying, oh, I don't know if after these elections, then are we going to have a situation where a lot of these things go away? Let's start with Mr. Mohomva.
No, he last spoke. Come on.
I interrupted him on the call, okay. So then I want you to respond to that as well. So I want to get a call within the next 3 minutes. So speak very quickly as well, so that I've got calls coming in here.
Yeah, basically, the question that you're positing is on the longevity of the Second Republic.
Yeah, so what's the answer?
Yeah, so basically, you'd look at the fact that the Second Republic is born out of a nationalist movement that is pursuing perpetual succession and perpetual ideas. So I see that this Second Republic really is bound to have a greater lifespan, because it represents enduring national interests, factoring in that.
Okay, so you're seeing a great lifespan. Let's
okay, all right.
Look, I love Zimbabweans, because Zimbabweans are a clever lot. They're very educated. You just heard from your caller. Okay, it's not me, it's the host man, it's the people that are listening to the program. And they're saying to you, look, this looks so much like lipstick on a pig, and it doesn't make it a princess. It looks like you're just painting something here, and we can tell. We're not so sure about what is being given to us, and I think that caller is on the money. That caller knows what we're talking about, knows what we're going through.
Okay, Mafunde from Gweru says, I totally agree with devolution as for progress. Guys, let's just be fair. There are no progress. Things are getting worse. No money in the banks. We got a caller here, 0772168045. You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution? Where are you calling from?
DJ, it is Mike from the coast.
What's your contribution?
Okay, I think the devolution is the way to go, because you see that in these smaller towns, traveling is not distances to just the basic documents. So we think that if we devolve parliament like what the MDC candidate is promising, that would be a very good way.
Okay, thank you for your contribution.
More?
Yes, go ahead quickly.
I think also the issue to do with renaming our properties is also very, very, very important, because they are tribalist in a way.
Okay, thank you for your contribution. Okay, get in touch with us, 0772168045. I think at this point, the concept of whether they should be or shouldn't, just for the sake of the person at home, the President Mnangagwa says there should be devolution, and it's in the Constitution. Advocate Nelson Chamisa, the president of MDC Alliance, says there should be a devolution. So the argument isn't whether there should be devolution or not. It's how does this animal look for someone sitting at home? Some people don't even understand what it is, and that's the reason why I think that's why I mentioned right at the top of the discussion the adequacies of the gentleman in the studio, that they will be able to explain it to the people at home what it would look like. Let's listen to this caller. You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution, and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, what's your name, contribution, and where are you calling from? Okay, taura tinzwi.
Nendiri kuti new dispensation yakavazwa izvizvo iti hatisi zvimwe zvinhu zviri kutooma wese.
Okay.
Saka kumabhengi right now hakuna kana mari, vanhu vari kutenga mari yacho inenge mubhengi.
All right. So what about discussion yanasi yatiri kutaura nezvenyaya yekuti from the contributions of what we have today, kuti nyaya dzema structural issues, particularly to do with devolution and things of that nature. Do you have any contribution in as far as that discussion is concerned? Okay, lost that call. But this is the thing that we are talking about. The structural changes that are said to be getting into place. Let's get in this caller in. You're live on ZFM Stereo. Can you turn down your radio?
Oh, yes, I've turned down my radio.
Well, okay, what's your contribution?
My contribution to the matter at hand is that, yes, of course, we have witnessed the introduction of the new dispensation. Yes, in every aspect, I could confirm that it is new in the way that it's doing things in the policy and the laws that has actually been amended to be friendly to business and a lot of things. And the opposition is not the cause of the new dispensation, because in actual effect, they are creating a scenario whereby they are hardening the atmosphere to actually effect a positive change in the country. As the new dispensation came into play, they went to America, the delegation, and they presented a document that was asking for more sanctions or tightening of the economic sanctions against the Zimbabwean people, of which we as the people are suffering, not the people that are in power. So the new dispensation is trying by all means, but if they actually want to build Zimbabwe, the opposition, they should come to the table and actually do things that make the country go forward.
Okay, so what would you like to see done in as far as policies and things of that nature going forward, whether it's with this current government going forward or any change in government? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I would want to see a scenario in this country where a particular individual doesn't feel that they hold the monopoly to change. You know, when the new dispensation comes and is sincere about doing things, let us give them a chance and actually help out every Zimbabwean from all corners of life. They should come together at the table, because all what we want is a better future for the Zimbabwe that we are living in, because we all live in Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF, MDC, NPF, or whoever is coming to the table, we all Zimbabweans. So let us come together and actually not hold the monopoly to change.
Okay, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so bringing it back, because I want to make sure we stay on topic. And for example, the president was quoted in the media saying that that the Minister of State here in Matebele in the south should know what resources they are there, the gold which is there, the lithium which is there, a diamond which is here, and the copper which is there, and it goes on to talk about putting in programs on course and environment and things of that nature. How would you empower, from a structural point of view, how would you empower, and also taking into note that the central government will still have a certain level of power, how would you differentiate the power between central government and the person on the ground for the purposes of development of those areas? Starting with you, Dr. Sibanda.
Larry, you clearly fall in the category of those intelligent Zimbabweans. Intelligent question. And I think the president has just... Those things are not the preserve of a devolved government. So he's talking about a devolved government and then giving responsibility to a central government. Oh my God, this tells you very clearly that this president has no idea.
So what
and
would
is
it
not
be?
interested. I will tell you what it would be.
Yes.
Yes, after I've told you that it's not what the president is talking about.
True, but
It's
like
not
to
a
get more calls
government
and get
of...
as much
It's not,
points as possible.
yes, it's not a government that is being run by a centrally appointed resident minister. It is a government that is being run by local. So you're going to have your provincial government. You're going to have your local councils having more authority to look at the resources and even to collect money out of the businesses that are taking place in those areas in order to then run specific problems. So President Nelson Chamisa, the cornerstones, and your callers are right on the money. All of them, they're intelligent, right on the money. You're going to devolve government by moving different departments
So would those, for governors, if we were to call them that, would they be elected officials from those areas? Would they be elected by those areas?
They will be elected in accordance with the demands of the Constitution.
So okay. I'm saying, so this is what I'm sitting at home and trying to understand. To say, how does it actually work? You say, okay, centrally appointed person. My question is, what sort of powers would that person be given? Maybe
it's assemblies. Assemblies are elected.
So assemblies are elected.
Yes, assemblies are elected and they make decisions.
Okay, let's get this caller in. You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution, and where you're calling from? Hello. Okay, can you turn down your radio, please? All right, so Taratinji.
Okay, inini kuti tingamubvunza pfungambo wangu kuti kana muchiti pane change since paone new dispensation. Change yacho is about talking, not kuita very practical. But zvimutaura ne-MDC and it ukamove ma-office to different places, everybody can be free to walk and it in a matter and it like right now. Like the artist like Chamisa, and like I say, I mean, and we're in Zimbabwe, and it in the Panagana one, I can wear the that issue. But now go towards my election, also was around sea, so now look at the and stuff. But I think can change it, but who was our change as for okay, we go see what I'm about is there.
Thank you for your contribution. Somebody says, just get in touch with us on 0772168045. That's a calling number. I want you to tell me what structural changes are to you. Like, what do you want to see? Some of the issues that, I mean, from the way the country is right now, I mean, the president spoke of the fact that Ministry of Education has got offices in different areas and things of that nature. Is that sufficient? That's the thing I want to hear from you sitting at home. What do you want to see in as far as this is concerned? Just reading here, somebody says, so the movement of offices does not adequately answer the issues of devolution. Above all, for devolution to be fully done, there's need to amend pieces of legislation like the Urban Council Act. Partisani from Bulawayo say that. This is what I was hoping to hear from you guys. Like, what has to be changed beyond, because the reality of the situation, if people are going to end up being beholden to certain laws, whoever ends up winning the elections, there has to be laws that have to be changed. What should they look like for the person sitting at home? Question.
Basically, maybe let me just start off by summing up issues that have been
I'll
raised.
give you two minutes because I want to get like two
Perfect.
calls, and I also want an opportunity for
Perfect.
Dr. Sibanda to speak.
All right. The question that is being raised is whether the structural changes that we have seen or the issues that I've highlighted, are they very genuine, or they are just there as part and parcel of the political play of the day on the part of the establishment. But I think that would be risky, and I'm sure the establishment is not lame enough to take such a course, because in 2023, let's say it wins these elections, it will need the votes of the so there is no way it can take the public for a ride. But again, what is also important is that when the aspect of devolution is mentioned, principally the aspect of devolution speaks to a situation whereby there should be accountability from grassroots. For instance, when you look at the issue of the Marange diamonds, there was lack of accountability and lack of involvement of internal stakeholders and the community, and there was no direct development that resulted in those communities as a result of diamond extraction. So devolution speaks to such matters to say there should be immediate development that is informed by immediate resources and the promotion of access of public goods. But again, what is then important when President Mnangagwa mentions the aspect of devolution? You discover that historically there were certain places that had geographic marginalization as far as issues of public goods and services are concerned. So as part of the structural enhancement of our policy frameworks, it is then critical to make sure that those marginalized parts of the country have access to particular goods and services, so that health services are no longer centralized in the big cities where you only find big hospitals and what you call it, other public service institutions. So the idea of devolution really is to create a widespread, to decentralize access to public service and goods. So that is one very critical aspect around that.
You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution, where you're calling from?
Okay, my name is Sarah. I'm calling from CBD. I wanted to speak on devolution. It is very good for those provinces that have got good resources. But now, the fact of the matter is, will they be able to distribute resources or whatever income that would have come, for example, in Matabeleland? You don't find a lot of resources there that if it is to stand alone, it will have issues compared to a province like Manicaland that has diamonds. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. So that question, I'll give you an opportunity to answer that question before we round up.
That's hyperbole. It's filled with unresearched positions that are not true.
But that doesn't answer the question.
It answers the question. It's not worth asking. It's not worth answering. It's not true.
But somebody asked.
Yes. The premise of the question is not true.
So okay.
Yeah, maybe to come in and...
You're live on ZFM Stereo. What's your name, contribution, where are you calling from? Okay, your last caller. What's your contribution?
Dr. Sibanda's sentiment in relation to devolution and whether the environment in this nation has in actuality changed. I think the issue with devolution, it has to be incremental. With a lot of it depending on the rate of economic growth. Now, I believe the two issues cannot be removed or cannot be separated, because devolution works or is even more effective and can be implemented to a greater extent when the economic fundamentals are in place and the economy is well oiled and is running very efficiently, and when there's economic growth. So I don't see how Dr. Sibanda can say, well, this other political party does not want to devolve state institutions to provinces, when he is fully aware that we do not possess the capacity right now to do that. It's not a question of not wanting to, but how and at what pace, you see. And then when it comes to they're not having been changed in this country, I believe that Dr. Sibanda is removed from reality. You know, we had another Dr. Magaisa who was here 5 years ago, who try to prescribe solutions and tell us how to do things. As soon as the elections were up and were done, he packed his bag, got on a plane, and went back to England. I think he's had one too many servings of kebab and chips, and that's the situation.
True that. Okay. I'm going to have to cut you off. I think that the final part, we're going to run it off on our Facebook Live because Chila's got to come on now. But I would like us to finish this off. Just go to our Facebook Live on facebook.com/CFM Stereo. There's something that was said to you in there. We're going to move off to the off-air studio quickly and finish off this discussion. Unfortunately, we have to round off. And I really want your response. Kebabs aside, I would like to respond that we have to finish off the show now. But I think we need to have a part 2 of the show where we can talk more about the structural issues around this. Thank you very much to Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda, who has a PhD in politics and international relations at the University of Huddersfield and is currently the presidential spokesperson for MTC Zimbabwe and a political analyst and budding academic in Richard Mahomva. Coming up with us right now is Chilla with our story is ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. And as we say, where I come from, Wobulawe, Asilu, Siyasebenza. Take care of yourself. Let's take it to that. Interesting final call. Your response to that? That somebody's disagreeing with you. Say there have been changes, that there has been also certain things that have happened. And his points, he has...
It reminds me of Animal Farm, okay? Some animals are more equal than others, okay? Of course there will be people in this country, you could tell. I mean, he's a well-to-do person, drives a nice car, lives somewhere, you know? I could imagine that. But if you're an ordinary Zimbabwean, the money in your pocket hasn't come in. The road you're driving in is still the same. The hospital still has no medication. And your president still doesn't understand this. President Chamisa has been going around this country, and we're talking to devolution. In order to understand what an ordinary Zimbabwean lives through, he's been driving on the roads in this country, noticing that. How did President Emerson Mnangagwa get to Bulawayo? He flew there. Okay, he doesn't understand what it is like to get to Mapisa, to get to Kwekwe, to get to Redcliffe. He has no clue. The reality of the matter is that an ordinary Zimbabwean has seen that there's still no cash in this country. An ordinary Zimbabwean still can't find the most basics that they need in order to function.
But the
so
statement was
the change has happened. I'll tell you what change has happened.
He's
For
talking about
President Emerson
incremental
Mnangagwa,
changes.
yes, he's now president, but I maintain my position. It is still lipstick on a pig. It's not a mistress.
But the question that was asked is, shouldn't it be, going back to what the listener said on the call, and Mr. Mohomva can come in here, he said, shouldn't we be talking about things like devolution in a paced way, which was hoping we discussed today, like what needs to be done, what are the timelines you need to achieve, that it has to be incremental instead of for want of a better word, a violent change. Maybe you can quickly come in there and then...
That's a lie. The Constitution doesn't say... The Constitution is very clear. You must have devolution.
The
government just doesn't turn around and say, oh yeah, I think that we don't have enough money this week. Oh, okay. No, the Constitution is very clear.
But the question,
we don't play around with the Constitution.
No, it's not playing around with the Constitution. He was talking about capacity to do it immediately, that from an incremental point of view. Sometimes an issue of not having money. So let's say, for example, there is a commitment to have, like both sides, there is a commitment to have devolution. And you're talking about needing to build a parliament in Gweru, which is going to take some time. So that statement comes from the perspective to say, are some of the changes that maybe not being seen right now are better off them not taking effect in time, or something of that nature? You can come in on that, and I want you to think about a response to that quickly. We'll round up very shortly.
Yeah, I think it is populist for us to say really devolution can become an instant process. But what is logical is for us to look at the capacity, the institutional capacity of the government, the financial capacity of government. Because when we enact policies, we need to research around issues to say, what are the concerns? And bureaucracy functions on looking at priorities. Bureaucracy does not focus on luxuries. It looks at priorities to say, how many hospitals does that district need? And this is why you discover that I would turn partisan and refer to the ZANU-PF manifesto, which has indicated that each district needs about 2 boreholes. So that on its own shows that these things, you look at a concern and you work on priorities. And the life cycle of a policy depends on the fact that have you addressed a particular problem which is based on scientific archiving of needs. So it's not something, it is populist to argue that when we're in government we can do that within a year or so. But really, rationally, these things take time because you have to respond to an absence of years of our people's lack of adequate public goods and services against financial challenges. So it's gradual.
Okay, so answer to that question I'd let you think about. Then I'm going to have one final question for both of you to answer before we go.
Look, I'll give this to Zanubia. I think it's going to need another 38 years, okay, to do devolution. That's how much time they would ordinarily take to do anything. In fact, it may be that another 38 years they will have no capacity at all, because in the last 38 years they have lost all capacity that they had in 1990. So Zimbabweans are in for a ride if they are looking at ZANU-PF to get capacity to do things that are required by the Constitution and then deliver them. You do not wait for capacity to do what the Constitution requires you to do. You just get on and do it no matter what it takes. That's the job of a government. I don't care where you get the capacity. You are in government, get on with that business, get the capacity, and move on. Now, the idea that, and this idea in fact disagrees with the premise of our debate at the beginning. We were talking about a supposed new republic that has already begun. That began in November last year, right? And now we're saying, no, actually, yes, the new republic began in November last year, but somehow we don't have capacity to have the new republic. So it seems to me as though you're having an argument within yourself about whether or not this government has the capacity to engineer change.
No, the question, going back to what I asked, so that we can stay on point, wasn't the fact that, I don't want to use the word fact, it wasn't the position, the pre-positioning by the last caller, that things are expected to have already gone to a certain position by now, is to say, isn't that sort of change supposed to be incremental? That some of the things that have happened are part of the incremental phase of getting to where you want to, much the same way, like for example, in Spain in 1931 that I make reference to, in 2 years, that's how long it took to come up with a new constitution, the changes that may need to be made in terms of moving parliament over to the other side, whether it's from a legal act, like for example, someone would go quite rightly wrote in and say that there need to be changes to, or rather use on the show to say there need to be changes to the Urban Councils Act, so that everything is done within a legal framework. So the question being become, since November, which is what the listener says, isn't it part of incremental changes towards getting towards that destination?
I don't know where you get the idea that there's been changes, because you're not talking about any. If there were changes, you'd be saying to me that since November, the government has looked at the Urban Councils Act, because you need to change that in order to effect devolution. You don't need that in order to build a parliament, no. And referring to 1930 as an example for how we should do things in 2018 is going too old backwards. We need to realize that we are operating in the 21st century. We're not operating in the 20th century still. We moved through that. And, Larry, we already have a new constitution that requires devolution. We don't want to change it. It took them 2 years to change it.
Earlier on, you did say in the program that it might require changing.
Yes, but not... You will require sections of the change, and I didn't say that anyway. But you do.
You did say in the show.
No. I don't. You may have misunderstood.
Okay. Anyway,
the fact of the matter is that we've already changed the constitution, and the need for devolution is already in the constitution. So you don't need any change. You don't need the 2 years that you're making reference to here.
There was a thumbs up figure. I'm just talking about that.
But having said that, what you actually need is a government that is committed to following the constitution. The last caller we had. Seems to have created here a mindset that whatever he said should be our Bible. He was wrong about many things. He was wrong about the law itself. There is no a requirement in the Constitution for you to wait until we've built certain capacities. No. There is a schedule for how things should be done and when they should be done in the Constitution. And the government should already be doing that. And to suppose that the government can give excuses, human excuses, no. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. The government and its budget must simply follow that. They must cut on defense and cut on everywhere else. We have the capacity to do what the Constitution requires us to do. If we don't, it's because we have a government that's ineffective.
An effective government is able to deliver change and is able to implement the constitution
so
as of the
finally,
moment.
so as a round off, how long should it take to get to this devolution, to complete devolution?
You cannot complete devolution. Society is always progressing. You will not be complete.
So to a place that you think is comfortable.
Well, it should take less than a month to change the required laws. That's a good start. It needs no money. It should take a couple of years to get to decentralize government functions, to decentralize the centralized government. It should take an order from in fact, it will take an order from the executive to say, this ministry is now operating from Masingo, it's now operating from Mutare, it's operating from Bindura. That's what we should. And the people of Mutare will be happy to host the government.
Right off in time, Chamisa was going on say. So then, in totality, to get, so you say within a month everything should start moving.
No.
No, I'm
not saying that. No, I'm not saying
it takes a month to...
I'm saying that it takes less than a month to enact a law.
Okay.
It takes a very short time to enact a law, laws that are required for us to move towards devolution.
Does this
and
include,
it takes 1 day for the president to issue an order.
So does this include all the fact that parliamentary process... Okay, that's a long story. Okay. You finish off. Finish off.
In conclusion, what I can say is that the reality of a second republic is something that anyone cannot doubt. Of course, we might not agree on how far it has been successful as far as achieving certain structural issues. But as I alluded to earlier on, we have seen particular policy changes. And coming back to the immediate issue, probably we might be oblivious to some realities. The Local Governance Act, as far as the Urban Councils Act, the Rural Councils, the Rural Act, and then the Traditional Leaders Act, those they were actually amended. Few are actually in their amendment processes so that they are in tandem with the Constitution. So the reality of devolution is inevitable. These statutes are beginning to be made so that they are in sync with the Constitution. Probably it's because some of us don't adequately follow current affairs.
And they will be finished. And they will be finished after the election. Come on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mohomva, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. This is from Stereo, my station, your station, the hardest radio in town. I'm back with you next week on the same program. I see you, Mr. Sebenza. Take care of yourself.